Hello, we are back with Chapter 5 of Shiro Kano. This chapter is called Arrival. Katsuzo Kano's youngest brother was coming to America free of financial worries. There was no frugality either as to Shiro's clothing and equipment. Handmade tapestries, hand-painted prints, fans, silk scarves, and tablecloths, sandals, purses of gold cloth, and other pieces of Japanese art packed in with bay rum, books, soap, canned foods, stationery, and almost enough clothing to start a modest haberdashery. The trip to America was profitable in more ways than one. He later used his impressions en route as material for an essay in a freshman English composition contest. Shiro wrote of his arrival in New York, the city lights dominating the sky. In the dark sky, the Statue of Liberty stood up clearly, shining by illumination. What a wonderful sight! She is the symbol of Americanism. I looked at this statue and prayed in my heart that I would spend my life joyfully in America without any trouble. The next day I started for Boston, the city of art, education, and religion. What, I asked myself, will I get from this city? Early during his freshman year, he wrote this impression in an essay he titled Homesickness. The train for Boston had started from Grand Central Station. My heart came gradually to darkness and loneliness. I shut my eyes. Soon my imagination flew to my country. Everything was clear in my memory. I had received a good letter from the college where I was going, but I had great unrest on the train in this strange land. I thought if this train was headed for Japan, I would be very glad. He arrived at Eastern Nazarene College on September 17th. Students on campus, as curious as they were hospitable, greeted the young Japanese student. A round of introductions followed, accompanied by his smiles, deep bows, and the oft-repeated "thank you." As he entered his dormitory room, he remembered there was no need to take his shoes off, as everyone did in his country. No sitting with his knees crossed, no sleeping on the floor with his head on a block of wood. And those high perches that Americans call beds, weren't they too far from the floor for safety? The following night he wrote in his diary, "Visited the college president and the pastor, and they welcomed me warmly. In the afternoon I wrote letters and played tennis. I got homesick and was embarrassed by it." Soon, everyone on campus was aware of the new student from Japan. The first day he attended classes wearing a tan slip-over sweater, looking all scrubbed and clean after a carefree summer. Apparently, neither the rigors of pioneer missionary work nor the grueling discipline of military training had left any trace of care or strain on his benign, serene, unwrinkled face. His gaze went everywhere, seeing, questioning, appraising, analyzing, and comprehending. He quickly adjusted to different customs. Not only were the language, food, houses, and beds different. Americans called the front cover of a book what Japanese would call the back cover. From the very first, one of his daily habits was to make tracks for the library and get hands on the morning paper. News from his own country, particularly, absorbed him. Often he appeared apprehensive and uneasy, as if he feared things to come. The course his country had taken militarily was to concern him more vitally. Only a few weeks after he had landed in the USA, Kano found himself practically penniless in a strange land. Without warning, his government had stopped the flow of gold from Japan to the United States. Katsuzo Kano's support had been completely cut off, but apparently no thought of turning back occurred to him. Instead, he thought, "I must get out and work with my hands like most of my college friends." In Kyoto, he had never even had to shine his own shoes. He wrote in his diary, "I wish to master English quickly. At the same time, I am worried over my school expenses. I shall pray for them," he wrote in his diary. "I was deeply impressed by the words, 'Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you and thou shalt glorify me.' Psalm 50:15. The course that his country had taken was to affect him in even more tragic ways. He was constantly moved by the plight of his fellow ministers in Japan who were called to fight in China. A few months later, Kano learned that one of 6 Nazarene pastors fighting in China was killed in action. Kano described him as a faithful, strong preacher and a pastor of the scholarly type. His best friend wrote from the front line, "You are lucky to be where you are. If your departure for America had been 1 week later, you would be here with us." "I must confess," Kano wrote, "that now I have some struggle in my mind. Of course, it is not of faith, but of morality I face as a Japanese. Pastor Shimizu left a wife and 2 children. Of course, the government shall take care of them, but their home shall not be happy. My heart is sorrowful and tearful. I have no wife nor children. I am a free man with no family responsibilities. Should not I be killed on behalf of a husband or father? A person with no obligations is enjoying life in another country, and a person having so much responsibility for his family is working hard under the war situation in China. When I think over this situation, I confess I cannot contain my emotion."